Okay, what we're going to do now real quick is talk about efficiency in the labor market. So I went ahead into the firm's labor graph. Obviously, the MRC, the price of labor, is coming from the market. I didn't draw it. This is just for the firm. But you can see here is the MRC of the supply of labor. It's constant. The price of this, the marginal resource cost or marginal factor cost, comes to the market, and you can buy as much labor as you want at the same price in this labor market for this job. So that's why it's perfectly horizontal or elastic, because there's essentially an infinite number of substitutes. And we talked about the MRP curve, the marginal revenue product curve, goes up then down. It goes up because remember, it's as long as it's a perfectly competitive product market. MRP is the MPP of the labor productivity times the price of the actual product. So as you know, MPP does this number because it gets to a peak and then it starts having diminishing marginal productivity, and you see that. And where these two things meet, that's where the firm is going to hire the number of workers. Now, I'm in another video showing, when MRP shifts. Obviously, it's when we have a shift in the productivity or we have a change in the price of the product. And then we see a shift of MRC if the supply or demand of workers changes. And remember, all of this is derived from the product. So the derived demand for labor comes from the demand of the actual product. Okay, so there are two equations that I don't see these necessarily being on the test as an equation, but the idea of it might be in terms of relationships in micro. And the first one is kind of like the maximizing utility. When we have two inputs, we have capital and we have labor. All right, if we want to maximize, we have those two type of inputs. We want to maximize the amount we're going to be getting out of those two labor. What's the most efficient use that we can have? Not the most profit maximizing, just the most efficient use of those two goods. That's when it's MPP of labor over the price of labor. And remember, the price of labor is just MRC, right? I mean, that's what the wage is, right? So MPP over the price of labor must equal MPP of capital over the price of capital. And again, remember, even if you have MRP, if it's profit maximizing, wherever MRP hits MRC, they're the same, right? So again, if this is, 100, if MRP equals 100, at 5 labor units, well, then that means that MRC has to also equal 100 at that spot. So even if you have just MRP, you essentially have MRC, which means you also have the price of labor because it's the same thing, or the price of capital because it's the same thing. Okay, there's a lot of interchangeables in this. So long as it's profit maximizing, and every firm tries to be profit maximizing, so you have to go in assuming they're profit maximizing unless told otherwise. Okay, so MPP of labor over the price of labor must equal MPP of capital over the price of capital. So, for example, if the labor, if labor ends up being 6 and capital ends up being 4, we need to know if we're going to be hiring more labor or we're going to be buying more capital. Just like in the utility, remember, MPP is downward sloping. The marginal physical product is downward sloping. So the more of it you get, the lower that number goes. So if your labor is 6 and capital is 4, you want to increase your labor because that's going to drop 6 down. The more labor you hire because it's going to be moving this direction, and less capital because it's moving up this direction because of diminishing marginal productivity. All right, so that's the efficiency one. If you didn't understand that, you can watch it a few times. I think I have another video on that too on my webpage. And then on the profit maximizing side, if you've got two inputs, capital and labor, and you want to use these two in profit maximize, it actually makes sense that the MRP over MRC of labor must equal the MRP over MRC of capital, which must equal 1. And just think about it. If this spot right here is 100, right? So if this wage is, let's say, 100, all right? Well, it's profit maximizing where the two things hit. So that would mean that MRP would equal 100, and that would mean that MRC or MFC would equal 100. So what that would mean is it would equal 1. So this looks a lot more complicated than it is. Remember a couple things. Again, MRC is just the price of labor, right? Just how much it's going to cost, or price of capital in this case. And then an MRC and MRP are the same number where the two intersect. So You can kind of play around with these numbers. I know we did a lot during first semester, but I wanted to make this video so you guys could have one more thing to review before you do some microing. I don't know if they'll have this on the exam, but since they're not going to have the government stuff, they're more likely to have something about labor. Okay.